Peace and blessings, family, and welcome to another Sunday Sitting with Sisters. How y'all doing out there in all our social media platforms? I'm hearing the echo. Is that all right? So I think that sounds good. All right, so I am so honored to be joined by Sister Angela M. Holmes today. Thank you for joining me, sis.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited because we're going to talk about your books. You're author, you're a mother, you're a wife, which is probably in reverse order. But you know, talk about all that on Sunday Sitting with Sisters. In the bottom of that's going to scroll across is going to be a banner basically letting people know. I'm hearing the echo. Do you have a phone or something on, or
no,
or another speaker? Okay, let me make sure it ain't me. Okay. Yeah, I got all my stuff on. Okay, I don't hear it now, so let's see what happens. Okay, so so you're an author, but what I wanted to do is give a little bit of history of who you are. So where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Sacramento, born and raised here.
Okay, a native. So is your family from here?
Actually, yes. So the Mitchells were raised in Oak Park, starting with my grandmother, and then they relocated back to Hawthorne, Nevada. But all my aunts and cousins were all here. We went to Sac High. So I was probably the last one to go to Sac.
Wow. I call that during the golden age of what we know as hip hop. You know, was that like in the late 80s, kind of, maybe early 90s?
It was, yeah. 84. I started 84 high school and graduated 88.
Wow, man, look here. Like you look younger than people that's in school right now. So when you were right out of high school, what was your plans for yourself then? So now we're talking 88, which is one of my favorite years on record. But what was it like in 88? Like what was out in 88? When you graduated from high school, how old were you?
I was actually 17.
Okay.
And no, I was 18. I had just turned 18. So 88, I just turned 18, and I was actually 6 months pregnant. So my goal was to not be the regular young teenage mom or whatever. So I immediately went to Sac City College.
Right on.
And then after City, I kind of fell off. You know how kids start junior college and then they fall off. So I wanted a career versus going to school. So I went to school for medical assistant. So that's what basically I did right out of high school that following year. I think I started in January '89.
Right on. So by the time you were 19, you had your first son, right? Yeah, son or daughter? Or daughter? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Okay, a son. What was that like for you, having a son?
So it was okay. I just didn't want to be the stereotypical teenage mom, so I basically lived with my mother still, and went to school. She helped me a lot, tremendously. She helped me a lot. But to be honest, in that time period is when everything in my life kind of turned, because I ended up getting involved with different groups and different guys or whatever. So it was a major relationship that I had when my firstborn was only, I would say, 1 years old. And so that turn of events led me to actually incarceration.
Mm, mm. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. So incarceration, you don't have to go into details,
Yeah.
but you never talk about that part. Or if they do, they look like they've been through the ringer. You don't look like you've been through the ringer. First of all, that's good genetics because black don't.
Right.
But
And Jesus.
that like, and you definitely got to be a higher power. But what was that like, and what was going through your head at the time when you went to jail?
So it was really devastating, and it was devastating for both parties because just to say at that time in I think it was 1990, Sacramento, California didn't have, or California's state didn't have a self-defense law. So it was a altercation that resulted in fatality. At the age of 19, I had actually been arrested, went to jail. I served 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. So, with that being said, it turned two families totally upside down because as a young woman, we see and are attracted to different things in the world. So it influences us to make the wrong decisions or just be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's basically what happened to me. So I didn't get to raise my firstborn for the first, I think when I got home, he was turning, I would say, 4.
Okay. What was that like rebuilding your bond with your son at 4 years old? What was that like?
So it was it was kind of difficult because it was like, the first years are the bonding years. So instead of bonding with me, he bonded with my mother. So when I came back, it was just basically there was no connection. And it was like having a 4-year old, like this is my little brother, little sister, or, like that. So I knew I loved him, but it was no connection. It was kind of, it really sincerely felt like it was just a little kid. And I look back on that now. It's been 30 years, 32 exact. And so it's just it's hard to kind of cope with now. We have a good relationship now, but that started a whole of dysfunction, to be honest. Anytime we're separated from our children, mothers are separated from your child, regardless if it's a father or a mother, there's be some dysfunction because they're gonna have questions. There's emotions that aren't resolved. There's questions that aren't answered. So it really has an effect, even when parents divorce. It still has an effect on children.
That's so true. That's so true. Um,
Yeah.
what was that like for you in terms of what things did you have to go to rebuild that though? Like it was it like spending more time? Was it like and did you go through any therapy or any counseling just making that adjustment? Like something that's a big shift in your life, you know. Did you
Yeah,
do
I didn't have any counseling. I was asked that years later, after sharing, my story and everything with certain people. But no, and that's something that we need. We need counseling. We need to address those hidden issues, those hidden, choices that we made, that those regrets that we have. So
mm,
I did not seek counseling. I used my book to as my therapy. It was years later, but something told, after sharing my story with different people, they're like, well, you don't look like you've been through all that. You should write a book. So I actually used that guide to kind of start the process of my healing, of my truth, of not being ashamed of my past. And I took a notebook with me, like to work every day for like 7 years, and I just wrote every day.
wow. Was it scary to publish? Like putting all your stuff out there?
Um, it well to start writing was scary because like 3 consecutive years, God would send someone to tell me, "Oh, you should write a book. This is how you do it." And then I was like, "Lord, I'm not doing that," you know. And then he told me again. He sent someone else, and then I said, "Okay," for the third time. I said, "Lord, okay, if you really want me to share this story, send one more person." And within the hour, he sent another person. And I just basically really cried because I was like, I trusted that I was hearing God's voice. And I said, "Okay, Lord." And he told me everything I needed to do. And it was with no hesitation that I trusted that God said he would protect me, from my enemies. He would protect me from judgment and use a platform to show his glory over my life and the transformation. So that's why I wrote this series. It's a lukewarm series because it's showing my transformation from being a 19-year-old girl, with no compass. You're just going off emotions, you're going off of whatever influences you. And then later you realize when God is stepping in, he changes you little by little by little. So that's why I'm on my third book now. Here I am, because we're all a work in progress. So I want to share, everything that God did for me. It's been 30 years, and even though it seems like a long time, it's something that we as survivors or victims, however you want to identify yourself, even though you've overcome it, it's still something that we have to live with. Like if no one knows my story and they find out, they met me first and then they find out, oh, she wrote a book. It's like you either are received or you're rejected, and I'm fine with that, and because the Lord says you're to do what I want you to do. You're to tell your story to give me the glory of how, you were saved, you were protected, even in the midst of all this turmoil that happened to me, God still protected me along the way. And as we mature as women, we have to realize that the decisions and choices that we make are going to affect our lives, are going to affect our children's lives. So that's why I just had to lay it all out there because women now, young girls, they're still going through things that I went through 30 years ago. They're still fighting over men. They're still out there letting men pimp them. It's a never ending cycle. So if I can show you the raw in the first book, Lukewarm, and then the second book, I don't look like what I've been through because I've also been shot, domestic violence. I've been through it all. So therefore, I'm sharing so that you don't have to go through that. And I know it's just like telling a child, don't touch the stove because it's hot, you'll get burned. We still gonna touch it, but at least you can see that in the midst of your turmoil, in the midst of your trials, your tribulations, God can bring you out, and you can have a second chance to start over. Every day is a new chance to be a person.
Khadijah is asking the question. I'm gonna share a question. She said, "How have your children received your life story? I read first and second books, and they are very detailed, and it's an awesome read. But how did your children? That's a great question. How did your children receive that? Your life story?"
So, um, so I did, being in Georgia, I left. So after, I actually got shot in 95. So I left Sacramento. I was like, okay, it's not working for me in Oak Park. So I left and moved to Georgia and I raised my children there. So I had my firstborn and then I had a daughter, my second child, in Georgia. Then I had a son. So all that they knew was the new Angela, not the Angie, the new Angela that went to church, went to work, was a greeter at the church and went to Bible study. So when we actually moved back to Sacramento, um, didn't I wrote the book, but I didn't know that it was actually going to be a book. How soon it would take. I thought it would be years or whatever. But by chance, I got hooked up with someone in a book club, Sunny, the Princess Book Club, and started writing. So, with that being said, introducing my children to everybody that we knew, all the old friends, the old neighborhood, that people that I was close to, they're looking like, who are these people, and then they started, when we reminisce, they're listening. And then so my worst thought happened when one of our friend's daughters, I guess her mom was talking about me, and she told my daughter, your mom killed somebody. And
Ooh.
so yeah, so it was like, it was kind of like, well, don't mess with her. You need to give her respect because she didn't did time, and she killed somebody, boo boo boo. And so my daughter listening to that, she was like, Mom, you killed someone, and I was like so stunned because I hadn't shared, the publishing of my book and everything just yet with my children. My firstborn was in the military, so he wasn't around. But with my daughter, she looked at me so differently. It was almost as if she was scared of me. And it broke my heart because it's like, well, you know who I am. I'm your mom. And you kind of go back to those Lifetime movies where it's like, okay, your child finds out a secret about you, and then they get you, and it messes up your relationship. But she honestly, yeah, she looked at me differently for like 6 months. She would just stare at me. She wouldn't say anything. She wouldn't ask any questions, but I would catch her staring at me a lot. And so at that time, she was probably 12. So now that she's 20, and with the last few years of publishing, touring, doing the book signings, now that she's old enough, because she kept saying, well, can I read your book? I said, no, not yet. Can I read your book? No, not yet. So now that she's 20, I said, okay, you can read it now, because she was in college and she had friends that would be influenced. And so she read it, and then she really said she understands. She understands everything I went through, and she feels, what did she say? She was just like, Mom, you're amazing.
Mm.
She that those were her words. She's like, Mom, you're amazing because, out of everything that happened to you, you still raised us, you still taught us, our values and this and that. So she was just like, she was in awe at the story. And so it's funny now because since back in the day I was called Angie, and now I go by Angela. So if somebody says anything or whatever, she was like, Mama, you need to bring Angie back because they tripping, or whatever. So I said, oh no, we're not doing that. Basically, that's how they took it. So it's received well now. It is totally received well now. Even my firstborn, we have deep conversations because he's like studying psychology and how people react, their experiences, their characters. So we have deep conversations, and he's totally, understanding now, about his father, about me, about, why things happen, why people did this or do that. So, my children are very supportive now.
Right on. You have another question in here. I'm working from two screens. But it
Okay.
is, yeah, she said, I know you have a fabulous husband now, but did you find it hard to date or be vulnerable to a relationship? Great question, Khadijah.
Um, Meaning any relationship or my relationship with my husband?
No, but now that you're married, but before, like, before you found, your Prince Charming, not before you found Brother Tim, what was it like in dating after, you experienced what you experienced? You know what I mean? Before you
so,
kissed.
so that's the thing. People don't realize, okay, if you are in an altercation, it's just like the females now that are walking around carrying switchblades, carrying razors in their purse. They're using that for their protection. I wasn't a person that did that. You know what I'm saying? It was just in the altercation, it was a knife involved. Okay, so with that, it's like it's an accident. So you feel sorry, you're remorseful, of course, for someone's life. But when God forgives you and it wasn't intentional, it wasn't even somebody that I knew. So it was just like going out and you hit somebody with a car. It's an accident and they die. It's horrible. But we have to know that God forgave us and we have to move on. I can't sit and dwell and mope. If God gives me peace within my heart to know that wasn't malicious intent. That was totally an accident. So you can't dwell on it for your rest of your life. You're gonna live with it, but you can't dwell on it. So in relationships, I encountered that the men that I got close to and told the story to, they received it. They was like, "Wow, you don't look like, that you're so sweet, you're this and that." And then they take it in count, influenced as a young woman, influenced by a guy that you cared about or got misled, or they took it in account of, minded, not being mature enough to make the right decisions, to know who to hang around with. I had one relationship where the guy did not receive that well. He was like, "Well, don't you think you should have told me that in the beginning?" And I, "Oh, we're sharing now. It's not like something I just tell everybody every day." And so he didn't receive it well. And it took for his parents to speak to him and and know who I was and remind him of who he met, and that people aren't to be judged by their past when they're consciously and, have made a change in their life.
Right.
And then with it being an accident, it was this fortunate thing that God used me. It's like, Lord, I asked myself, "Lord, why did you use me for this?" You know what I'm saying? Why me? But I can't question him. He gets all the glory for allowing me to still look like I do, allowing me to still have peace and joy in my heart, and to share with others what not to do. That's the main thing. We cannot be blinded with these men in the streets. We cannot be blinded by the drugs, by the abuse. We have to know our self-worth.
Right on. So with that being said, sis, you said it earlier about, and you just said it now about the young women, and you know, and so when you're an older person, you can kind of sit and say that, 'cause hindsight is 2020. It's like the stuff I knew now. And if I knew it when I was 20, who knows where I would be? But that's not how destiny goes. You just don't get a cheat sheet, really. But when you look at
Right.
young ladies, what are some of the things you think they can be experiencing that will make them be susceptible to the streets and protection from men and just wanting to be connected? What type of things lead a person to those kind of situations, if you will? Because I think sometimes we don't talk about that, which is hard to do. So I work with a lot of young girls, a lot, and so I can see that connectedness. Like I want a man to like me. I want to feel loved. I want to feel needed. I want to be with the clique because maybe my family situation isn't strong. What are some of those things when you look back at young Angie? I love the way you said that. I have some young girls now who are young women who say, "This is my nickname," but I had to grow into my real name, which was so powerful in itself, but just wasn't ready and didn't know that about themselves. What kind of things you think they're experiencing out there that would make them turn to the streets?
So I feel like in our era, I think we're the last era. So I turned 50 this year. So I think we're the last era that was raised with both of our parents in our lives. And I think the younger the mothers are and the generations, there's no guidance because, okay, if you're young having a child, who taught you things that you need to know? And I see that it's mothers smoking weed with their daughters. It's mothers fighting with their daughters on the street with other girls. It's mothers in the club with their daughters. And so I feel like you have to have structure. So if there's no structure, my father was in my life from day one until the day he died. He was my ride or die. He was my cheerleader, But I will say, as being a woman, I told him, "Well, Daddy, how come you never, made sure I didn't date a certain type of guy? Or how come you didn't pick a guy for me?" My dad was in law enforcement. He was the first black bill boss here in Sacramento. And so he was like, "Because I know they wasn't any good." But it had to be somebody that you felt, for your daughters to choose, just like with other cultures. They have arranged marriages. So I felt like if my dad would have stepped in a little bit tougher, and I was a handful. You couldn't tell me anything. I was standing up serving Oak Park Market, and when my dad passed by coming from his office on Stockton Boulevard to go to the freeway to go home to the South area, I'm ducking behind, the building, or just ducking behind a car because I'm sitting up Oak Park Market. Really, so So he didn't grasp that part of me. And I was allowed too much freedom, I feel. And these young mothers, the fathers are not present, locked up, and then you're taking your child to the prison to see, dad. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with that, but if it's even if it's your boyfriend, it's not the child's dad. Because I was blinded and did the same thing with my firstborn. You know, before everything happened, I was taking my child to see my man that even their father. You know what I'm
Right on.
saying? And then I had to wake up. This is not a good look. What is this teaching my child? What is this teaching me? A man that doesn't have a 401k, he doesn't have a job, he doesn't have a house, he don't, he might, but all his life savings is in his pocket, basically. You know,
So, Sister Angie, it seems
there's
like
no
Sister Angie, hold on. It seems like your
father figure
computer is
in
freezing a little
these
bit.
young girls'
I don't know if you
life. And then two, they might not have been a father figure in their mother's lives. So therefore they're going off emotions, they're going off what's influencing them, what Negro they can find a post, or get them
that's what I thought.
weed or whatever. And that's what's down children. So therefore
An-
it's
Angela,
like
hold on,
it's a
Angela, hold on. You're
repeating
breaking up.
cycle. So, and with me with young girls, I found that when I shared my book, with some of the girls in the neighborhood, they're more impressed with the old Angie than they're impressed with the Angela. And I was like, no, baby, don't be impressed with her. Be impressed with me now. But see, they didn't receive who I am now because they know they were doing what I used to do. So I don't know if they were ashamed or whatever the case was, but that's just, I feel that's just,
Angie, can you see that message that Khadijah put up there that you're coming in and out?
oh, I saw that go
Yeah,
out.
go out and
Yeah.
come back in.
Is it, you see, I'm back
Yeah,
now?
just sign out and then sign back in. You're going to pop out and pop back in. Maybe that'll correct the sound. Let's try that real quick. If you're joining us on Sunday Sitting with Sisters, we're joined by Arthur, Angela M. Holmes. She's talking about her 2 books, but she's also talking about her life, which I think is so important. Her story and how she had her transformation in terms of what she went through in her life, and where she is now. And so she's talking about her 2 books. We're going to get her back in here.
How about that?
Yep, that sounds great, and you look great. Well, you look great.
Okay.
So the interesting thing in what you were sharing, you talked about like how young people pretty much perceive you now, and sometimes how they may celebrate the Angie as opposed to the Angela. But I also
Right.
think sometimes when you're young, and you said a lot of key things. You talked about, and someone else put on here that we're probably the generation, because I'm 49. I just turned 49, so I'll be 50 next year. But she said this is like the last generation that has grandparents to go to if our parents were not there.
Right.
A lot of truth to it. But then I also know, I think sometimes, no matter what generation, there are just some things that occur that sometimes we don't talk about with our children, like what it feels like to want to be paired with somebody. But because we don't necessarily talked about arranged marriages, people have to be
Mhm.
prepared for that. So we don't
Right.
we'll tell a girl keep your legs closed, but we don't talk about her what she may be feeling. So that way it don't overtake her. We just,
Exactly.
sometimes we be embarrassed or nobody never told you or never had that conversation with you. What did you do differently with your daughter? Because watching your daughter grow and then you used to be young yourself, how did you deal with that?
My daughter is unique. It's like she is my twin. And it's like I tell her, I said, you're the better version of who I was. Because my daughter, she watches, her friends get pregnant. She watched my other friends with their kids smoking weed or whatever. And it's like she just she didn't. The only thing she adapted from me, that she didn't, is the boys. It's like I tell her, wait, wait, wait. I said, look at me when I was 30, when I was 35, when I was 40. I'm like, I'm still young. I'm still searching for a mate. You know what I'm saying? I'm still searching for someone. So you have plenty of time. I said, worry about your school first. If it wasn't anything that I regret, is not staying in those books. So my daughter was straight A's. She got a scholarship to Georgia State, but then she said, well, I don't want to go to school right now. I'm tired. So I said, well, work is best experience. So one thing about my daughter, she listens to me. She doesn't question anything. She just, I guess from being under me, she just soaked everything good that I had. She soaked it all up. She's organized, she's responsible, she's independent, she's such a sweet and caring person. She has so much compassion and it's for other people. So she did, like I said, she's just a better version of me and she looks like me too. So it's just like, I'm just so proud, of the relationship that we have because she lives in Atlanta with her father.
Right
And
on.
so, even with that being said, he wasn't, he was present in life, but he wasn't present in her life because I left Georgia when she was probably 10, I believe it was 10 or 11, and raised her in Sacramento all the way up until she got 17, and then she wanted to graduate with her sister. So then she moved back. But at the same time, it's like I never said, well, your daddy don't call, he don't do this, he don't do that. I never said anything bad about him. I let her see for herself. He flew out one time when she turned 15, and I was ecstatic about that, and I let them have their time. But yeah, so she's out there with him now. And it's still what we're going through now is he has issues with his father that had passed. So it's like stemming from he's emotionalist. And this is just things that her and her sisters tell me. And it's like they're craving for his attention, for his love. And a lot of men think as fathers, long as I provide, I'm successful. That's my love. That's showing you that I love you because I'm making myself successful so that you can have better things in life. But a child doesn't know that. A child doesn't want money. A child wants your time.
That's so
You
true.
know what I'm saying? So, with that, with my daughter, we just have a great relationship and she's very responsible. She's actually a supervisor at UPS at 20, in Georgia. So I'm just very proud of her. And I just am glad that everything good in me, spilled out onto her.
Right on. Sister
Yeah.
Stephanie said, do you volunteer at community organizations that serve young women and girls to share your story and to inspire them?
Actually, no, I've only been back. This will be my second year. And so when I first got here, I was working. So I went under my husband's group, but he stopped with the women because of, conflict or whatever, because he don't really allow parents to be in the healing circle. So we were going to cross over into that and bring back Sisters Healing Sisters, or, because he has a healing circle for the guys and it was brothers healing brothers, but then COVID hit and then I had a hip replacement. So I wasn't mobile. So now this year, when we were starting to venture into that with the Boys and Girls Club in this arena, then COVID hit. So now it's just basically I'm just trying to juggle, getting everything in order in my life for being, my third book coming out. I want to finish that, but there's things I'm working on internally and spiritually so that I can offer good advice and my experiences to young girls. But I don't want to come out when God doesn't have me ready yet. So I feel that God hasn't prepared me yet to step onto that platform, far as, you know, one-on-one with young girls,
Right.
they could see my story and hopefully it will, resonate powerfully with them to want to change. But I feel like I'm still growing to where to sit in front of a class. Um, I don't think I'm there yet, because even though you can share your experiences, you need to have some sound literature. You need to have a sound knowledge, book knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Kind of to relate, to have it back up. Even just like, you go to church, but you need to read God's word so that it can resonate in your spirit and then it can flow out to other people. So
Right.
that's where I feel I'm at right now. But my goal is to really have a prison ministry where I do speak to young women and go into the youth authorities. All this takes a little bit of time because I just received my certificate of rehabilitation. But with that, you're still not cleared as far as fingerprinting to be able to speak to those type of what do you call that, facilities. You have to be cleared. So the governor hasn't pardoned me totally yet, so I'm just waiting for that process. So it all takes time. Everything is in God's timing. I'm just allowing him to use me right now, to share my story and then keep on building me to where when it's my time, I can share everything and also have answers, resources for the young girls, not just tell them, oh, I did this, you shouldn't do that. We want to, they need to see concrete information. Okay, well, if I leave this dude and he try to kill me, where I'm gonna go? We need to have resources for those ladies, a safe house. So that, just like with sex trafficking, you have to have those resources in place. So
Right.
that's why I haven't ventured out there yet.
Right on, right on. Sister Khadijah is saying you're selling yourself short, sis. Your experience is bigger than any textbook knowledge, and you ain't never lied on that.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're
What
right. You're right.
what has your relationship been like with your sons? Because that's major too. Mother and son relationships has a lot to do with what we're seeing in terms of violence, in terms of, sex trafficking, all of that. Like there's somewhere in there because boys, just like girls, have relationships with their moms. Like that could determine, how you make a
Right.
decision or how you see people. What has your relationships been like with your sons?
Okay, so with my firstborn, we tackled that. So, like I said, we're on a good place right now. And with him, he sees his own father. He sees his own father's flaws, and what he's not going to be. And, I ain't trying to throw shade or anything, but like you said, sons have a relationship with their mother, but they also need a relationship with their fathers.
Right on.
So with my first son and his father, the love has always been there, but sometimes you just don't know how to be a father, because if you're a man always looking, something's missing. So you're going from woman to woman to woman, trying to find that missing piece, and
Mm.
you don't find it. You're leaving out your children. You're leaving out time spent with your kids that you keep producing you know so same as my youngest son, because I have three children and each of them have different fathers. And I might add that they're all like 10, 12 years apart, because when I became a different woman with my daughter, I was supposed to get married, going to church, and that didn't happen. So I was like, okay, now I have a child and I'm alone again. So now I'm raising two kids by myself. So I was like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. So I waited another 10 years and then met a minister of music in church and was like, okay, this is safe. So I dated him for, I believe, 2 years before we even I conceived my son. And it was like, once that happened, it was a mess. It was like he went left and I went right. So with that, it's like children still need their father. So with my youngest son, it's like it's hard. because my husband mentors boys, but it's different when they're in the house with you because you're mentoring those boys a few hours a week versus a child that's in your home. And it is tough because he wants his dad. His dad is in Georgia as well. And, as a mother, I'm protective over my son because if you don't have your stuff in order, who is he going to be staying with? Have you, have a place, a foundation for him. So if you don't, I can't just send my son out there. So with that, it's like I have to be a little bit more. I think they say I spoiled him too much for one, because he's my last born. But at the same time, I'm trying to teach him, responsibilities, listening to instructions, because being a Black male, in society, you already got those two strikes. You're a male and you're Black. So therefore, my teaching is basically instructions, follow instructions. If I tell you to do your chores. Don't talk back. Everything has rules and rules and regulations everywhere you go. There's laws. I was just telling them the other day, just like you have to stop at a stop sign. That's a traffic law. So you need to stop. So if I ask you to do your chores, you already know you do them every day. I shouldn't have to tell you. So me and his relationship, he's very loving, and so I love on him, hug on him, but also he thinks I'm mean because I get on him. I don't really cut him any slack with, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Okay, you can't have your phone, you can't have your PlayStation, whatever. And then even he's at the point where he's cool with you long as you go into the store and buying him something. Or, then he's, you know what I mean? So it's like, don't be trying to use me, because we have quality time. We watched a movie last night, but it stems from possibly because you don't have your cell phone, you know. But we have had shared moments, and where I ride, he likes to ride with me, go look at houses, go to the park and things of that nature. But in the house, it's just with COVID, you can't really do too much. And we just kind of cooped up in the house. And so you need to do your chores. I mean, everything still is everything. Do your chores, brush your teeth, wash your face, shower, clean your room, all that kind of stuff. So um, I think we're okay, but I just know there's a missing link there that my husband really can't feel.
Hmm. Well, I think it takes a lot just as a mother to even admit that. Because I watch sometimes with women when they have sons, like they be in such protective mode that sometimes they can't see what's really missing, or they can't even say it because they don't want to feel like they can't do anything. But I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a part of being a human being and would help you to be well in terms of, hey, yeah, I'm married, I have this husband, I have my youngest son, and even though this man has stepped in, there are some things that your son need that he needs to probably get from his own dad. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which may never.
Yeah.
He may not. But I think that's the power of when you're a mother. That's that power that you can't even put into words because mothers can feel and see, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's kind of hard. I mean, a lot of young men who I could tell did not have good relationships with their mother. It comes out in the way that they respond to women, how they, just women that they were trying to be all nice, but then the other part come out like, like who is that?
Right.
So it's
And
kind
that's why,
of
yeah, that's what I didn't want to, I didn't want to get him too much. They say spare the rod, spoil the child. I don't want to hit him all the time because I've done it before, and now it's like if I say something to him, he might, if I walk up on, he'd be like, I was like, boy, what is you doing? I ain't gonna hit you, So it's funny, but it's not funny because in public they be like, oh, she be beating that boy, But no, it's not that. But it's just that I do want you to respect me because at the same time, my son is very loving. He's very caring. He's emotional. So he's cried to me. He was like, I want my dad, this and that. So that's why I know and I can admit that, yeah, that void has not been filled and it cannot only with his father. But at the same time, I watched my brother raise my nephew and he wouldn't allow him to cry. So now that my nephew's grown, he admitted that to me. He was like, Dad wouldn't allow me to cry. So, I never was able to express my real emotions, but he never wants to put a hand on a woman. He's very loving also, but he realizes that that was a part that he was missing. If he had any anger issues early on, he was like, my dad didn't allow me to cry. He didn't allow me to express myself. So I just always share everything openly with my son because I don't want him, like me, hitting him, or whatever when he was growing up as younger than he's 11 now. And I feel like he's getting too big for me to do that. And then I don't want to scar him. Like all you did was hit me, you know what I'm saying? I don't want him hitting nobody else because he knows not to hit girls. So that's one thing he does know. And so, with that being said, I just, try to raise him differently. They say I spoil him, but I feel like, you have to be open, and hitting them isn't always the answer. You know what I'm saying? It builds a frustration and an anger. And one day they might want to ball up and hit you. So no, I don't. I want to show him that I respect him. I'm not going to hit you. I don't want you flinching just because I'm telling you what to do. But you're going to need to know that I'm going to tell you what to do because I'm your mom.
Right on. Sister
Yeah.
Sonia is agreeing with you. She said, yes, my oldest son was okay with my husband, but he refused to allow him to be in that space that he reserved for his father that was never there for him. And I think that means a lot. I think it's okay to say it. I feel like part of the healing in our community is to normalize things that were forbidden for us to do. Like when you talked about crying, that was forbidden, even going back into how we came to this country. So we got to, because I think that's why we have so much hypertension and diabetes, and black men don't live past 52. You know what I mean? Because of the stress that's put on, our culture. So I think that's such an amazing place to be in, that we could do things that wasn't normalized before because we thought that was how we were going to survive. How did it work when you met your husband? Like, how did you blend your families?
So, with me meeting my husband, his name's Tim, and it just seemed like it was instant, because what happened was that I came back to Sacramento because I did a memorial for my father, and then I had met with Tim to do my expungement papers. So with that, we started talking, and so I went back to Atlanta, and so the month of November, we talked every single day. And what I noticed was that when I was out in Sacramento here, my husband was, then Tim was, he was evaluating Caleb. He was like, okay, he's cool, because he's a friendly kid. So they laughed a lot, in that short period of time. So then Tim ended up taking us to the airport, and he was like, I feel good about it. Your son is nice, just, whatever. So I was like, okay. So when we talked for those 30 days, I was in Atlanta, he was here. My son actually was like, you talked to Mr. Tim today? I was like, yeah, he's gonna be on the call in a minute, whatever, And so he said he felt comfortable. He said, I feel butterflies in my stomach when I talk to him. It's like it gives me a good feeling, like I could trust him and tell him anything. So it just took off from there. So we talked all day, like on the way to work, on the way from work, during work, And at the time I was transitioning to a house. I was living at the hotel I was working at, so Caleb was there too. And then I was like, okay, well, talk to Tim while I'm still checking in this guest or whatever. So they still had a good relationship, and it was like, okay. So that's when, after those 30 days, he was like, well, you ever consider coming back? And I was like, no, not to Sacramento, not unless I was married. He said, well, yeah, I want to marry you. And I was like, for real? He was like, yeah, for real. So I was like, okay. So then he was like, well, I'm coming. So the next day we talked, he was like, I'm coming to get you guys on Tuesday. And I was like floored, because I was like, you coming to get us, like, for real? So, and he had said everything that I told God I wanted my husband to say. I said, Lord, I want him to already know about my past so I don't have to explain it. I want him to know in his heart that you're telling him that that is your wife and you need to take care of her. When I say take care of her, meaning a protection, a friend, protect my feelings, because I've been through so many stupid relationships and of dishonesty, distrust, and everything. So he has said all those words, and it was like, okay. So when he came, my son hugged him, so it was all good. And then it was like, being raised in a church, my son saw that, children's Bible study. So he respects the word marriage also. And he was like, oh, so that's your husband. Now that's my stepdad, that's my dad, and he immediately started calling him dad. But the tricky part is, the more they got close, that's when the manipulation came in, and now you have to discipline me, so you're not my friend no more.
Oh,
So, yep. So that's where that happened. So now they're fine. That he kind of says, I'm the one that's in the way. I'm like, really? Because I'm the, because Tim is more, he doesn't hit, of course. He talks to him, but when my son talks back or gets out of line, he knows, because my husband is not going to talk to him. He's like, well, no, if you don't know how to talk to me, then we're just not going to communicate right now, and so that eats my son up. And then he was like, okay, he doesn't like the silent treatment. But now they're on a different ground where it is communication, because my husband learned, well, I just can't shut him out like that. I have to talk him through it, talk him through, what he did, and the consequences of everything. So now we're cool again. As a family, we cool right now, so it's good. But my son did receive Tim very well in the beginning, and like called him dad for the first year and 6 months. I think now he not so much, because he's been talking to his real father and bonding with his brothers that are in Georgia. So he kind of doesn't want to call him dad, and I guess a lot of young boys might go through that. They feel like they're, cheating their own dad out of something. I don't know. But I recognize that he doesn't call him dad anymore. He calls him Tim, Mr. Tim, actually.
well, but it shows he still has respect. That's
Yeah,
the whole part of Mr. and Mrs.
right.
But I also think
Yeah.
as you grow, that's why I love that you don't stay young forever. I think that's just how the universe makes it work.
Hmm.
Because then as you reflect on your life, you're like, man, like I didn't know it then, but how blessed was I for real? You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yes.
So he may feel some way now, but as you grow, you begin to really understand, like, the blessing that your mom found a good person to be in your life. Because there's some people trapped with folks that their kids can't stand because the person's not a good person. So
Yeah.
you
And he
understand?
said that too. He said that. He was like, when you married them, he said, I might say that, when I get older, but right now I ain't feeling them.
Yeah,
And I was like, boy, shut up. But
yeah,
he did acknowledge that. So he sees it too, that, in the long run, because I don't ever want to point fingers where such and such is not doing this, but he's here. I don't play that card. So I just let it play out. And time will tell, because like you said, you'll see it as you mature. He was there when I did this. He was there when I did that.
yeah, yeah. That's the beauty. And you're laying the foundation. I think that's the other part. When you laying foundation, you cannot worry if your kid likes what you do or not. I mean, sometimes, because I think sometimes being that friend people talk about, I listen to a lot of young people not really like that. Like the freedom feels good, but then, the long run is that you don't get to really when your kids start doing some things, and it reflects on how your relationship was with them. Not all of it, but you know what I mean? I
Right,
hear
right.
when I was coming up, I had some friends whose moms were not as strict. And I was like, man, I wish my mom was like that. But then as we kept living, I was like, thank God my mama was strict
Right. Yeah.
and stuff,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to disappoint her. So that's such a big thing. We don't really talk about the groundwork that we lay for young people, because it's just for them to be better adults, honestly. And they
Exactly.
have
It
more to
is.
work with as an adult than you happen to be a kid and you think you could do grown up stuff. And then when you get grown, there's nothing to do. Like
Right.
almost like
Exactly.
like, tell us
You're like, stay young as long as you can.
right. I tell people, hey, you better stay at home as long as you can and stack that money. You really don't need that little apartment. Quit playing. Go in your room and make
Right.
your room like a living room or something. I don't know.
Exactly.
So your book,
That's
let's
what
look
I
at
told my
this.
daughter.
Yeah, I'm just saying. So this book said, oh, not this book. Let me skip to the. I'm gonna go in order. Though I love
Okay.
your covers. I love your covers. I love that it's a series. I always tell my young ladies, these are books that you should be reading. This remind me of the Drama High series. I mean, there was a sister who did a series back, and this was like, oh God, I must have been like in my 30s when the sister did this book. I think she's in her 20s. But your stuff is a series, which is awesome. Your books are a series, which is awesome.
Hmm.
But they're series
Hmm.
built on real life stuff, real life
Right.
existence, if you will, that some young people can relate to. So lukewarm. What year did you put this book out?
That was actually self-published. I would say 2016. 2016.
Well, Is there any significance to this cover with the numbers in the back? Is that 3825?
Yeah, so so it's significant because so what I did when I first published it in 2016, then I re published it last year because I added new content. I got a professional editor, and also I changed the cover because the first cover kind of made it seem like it was a churchy book, and so it was being misconceived as, oh, that's not a church book, it got cursing and all kind of stuff in there. So I changed the cover. Yeah, I changed the cover so that it can relate to my story. And 3825 is actually my grandmother's house on 33rd Street.
Right
If
on.
everybody knows, that's Mama Lou's house. So, and everything took place there. It's like, we were always on 33rd, so that's why I thought to um do the cover in front on the porch right there, because even in the book I'm sitting on her porch, so
Right.
that resonates with the story. And the title, I still kept the title because my father would always tell me, Angela, you can't keep straddling the fence. God doesn't want you lukewarm. You're either hot or you're cold. You're in or you're out. So I was like, okay, Daddy, I know. So it just stuck with me because with my story, I didn't realize, okay, maybe I am being lukewarm, because we weren't raised in a church, but I went to Catholic school. And
Mhm.
then with that, that's where I learned, about God and everything. And then as being in Oak Park, our family went to St. Paul. So I was baptized by Ephraim Williams. And so, I noticed that, okay, this is what my dad was meaning about lukewarm, because I'm going to church, but I'm not really in church. I'm really in the world. So as I matured and went through different relationships, like in the second book, the second book, I Don't Look Like What I've Been Through, is speaking on, different types of relationships. Like I dated a married man who was separated, but you know how that goes,
Yeah.
and then just dating in general, different guys, and then being in a domestic, I was married before as well. And, it was domestic violence in that marriage. So that didn't last long, so that second book, is more transformation of me knowing what I don't want in a mate, what I don't want to accept, and learning who I am and value myself.
Right on. So you could get both of these books where?
You can get them off Amazon, Barnes and Noble, actually any literature platform, and follow me on Facebook, IG, and even Twitter.
Right on, right on. I put down at the bottom where you could find her as well. That's what's scrolling across that bottom. So if you're looking for her contact her on Facebook, and she's Arthur Angela Marie Holmes, or IG at Arthur Angela for you. Right?
Correct. Yes, that's right.
Support this sister,
Mhm.
y'all. Get these books. If you have young teenagers or even grown women, let's just face it, because I read these books too. You should. This is a perfect time. Use COVID to read some good books, not just always watch the good movies. Read a good book. And
That's
this
right.
sister's book, Lukewarm, and I don't look like what I've been through. Please pick these books up. Their sister said it was so good that once she started, she couldn't put it down. So, thank you for that, Sister Jackson.
Thank
Any
you.
closing remarks? Anything that you want to share with? What would be your advice to all of us? As we go through this season, because we're also in the season now. It's the fall, feel like winter. People usually more depressed around this time. Usually, you stuck indoors. You can't get outdoors as much. What would be your advice?
My advice is really, you have to pray. You have to build that relationship with God, because if you don't, it's like you have to know that He's the one that gives us everything. He wakes us up in the morning. Even if you feel it's a higher power, you don't want to say God. He's up there, and you have to build that relationship spiritually within yourself and know that life is going to happen, but at the same time, you have to have joy and peace in your heart. So you can pray, meditate, whatever you need to do, write it out, journal it out. But He will give you a sense of peace. He will give you joy. It'll just come into your heart as long as you open it up. And then we have to remember that we have to forgive. The main thing is God wants us to forgive, because we all make mistakes. We all have made mistakes. But if you harbor grudge and and hate in your heart, it's only damaging you. That's why the high blood pressure and the diabetes and your diet and everything. So you have to be open to release all those toxins, whether they're spiritual, emotional, physical. You have to release that. And my main thing I have to say, because God saved me, God protected me through all this, even my stupid decisions. So that's all I can say is I give all glory to God who can change you. Anything. All you have to do is pray about it, and talk to him, like you're talking to me or talking to you, just tell him, Lord, help me with this. In the morning when I walk, I listen to Tamla Man, Change Me. That's just what I listen to because I want that to resonate in my spirit. And I want the Lord to know that keep working on me, so I can help other women. Keep working on me because you didn't do this in vain. You didn't pick me, to not spread your word. So that's my go-to.
Right on. Before we check off, Khadijah, I didn't see this question, but she said, tell us about y'all's couple radio show. It's amazing and informative. So you have a couples radio show.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, with me not knowing my husband, we knew of each other, but we didn't know each other. So with being married, I think it was more of a shock to him because we come from different backgrounds, and was raised differently. So I think with this marriage, it's a real marriage. It's like I'm trying to tell him, like, I'm really your friend. You're really my friend. So we have to build that bond, and we kind of, what you do, the horse before the buggy. So we didn't get a chance to court each other and do all that. I said, so we need to do that now because I let all my guards down. I trust you as a person, because, he's so humble. He's so kind. He's so respectful. And it's like just a blessing for me. So I said, when I try to say something, he might think, oh, she's just trying to tell me what to do. So I said, well, let's do this. Since COVID hit, we can't get, couples over or go out with other couples or whatever. So let's do a couple talk. Let's go on your Blog Talk Radio and talk about whatever issues we had this week, because I know somebody else is going through the same thing. And therefore, you can see that it's not just me trying to tell you what to do. It's going to be other women that say, please wring that dish towel out and hang it up. Don't just throw it in the sink, or please put the toilet seat down, or, just simple things like that men, think that women are just nitpicking, so it has helped us tremendously because it's opening him up, because I don't know in his past relationships how many he's had, not too many. And he's more focused on, he was always focused on his work. I have a special husband because that man, he don't pay attention to women at all. And I'm thankful for that. Trust me, because God knew in my past, that's the problem I had. I don't like to share nobody. So it was just like, he focuses on me only. I'm his wife, and, he don't pay attention to anything. Like, how guys have wandering eyes. They might look at some girl's butt or whatever. Because I used to watch him at first, and he don't be paying no attention. I have to make him, well, don't you like my shoes? Do you like my hair? I have to make him say these things. He said, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't pay attention. But yeah, you pretty. Or, I like that top, so it just, it's bringing him out, and I wanted him to get comfortable. I'm gonna say we in this for the long haul. We knew each other. God brought us back together after 30 years to develop this marriage, to develop this relationship, under this contract or whatever. So it's really helping. And we have couples calling in, and then they'll Facebook me, message me or him and say, man, you guys really hit on something. There's a lot of things that other women are going through. The husbands might not want to speak on it on the radio, but they're listening. So it's good because it's helping them and it's helping us. So I'm just thankful that, God gave me and him that idea, because his radio show. And, I was just like, I think we should do that because it'll help us. It helps us grow to know that we're not being fake. We're being transparent with our marriage, because, a lot of people think, well, with my family, like, you didn't even know him. You just married him. We don't even know him, but now they're getting to know him. They love him to death. So, I think it's really working out. And I thank everybody that has been listening. So we'll be there every Thursday on the radio. I'll post it on Facebook. So every Thursday, 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
Well, thank you so much, Angela, for joining us on Sunday Synthesis. It was a pleasure. And I learned a lot, and I feel inspired. Thank you so much. So, family, we will be back in the building this evening talking about what's next on this political season, as we talk about strategies to get whatever it is that we think we need in our community. So I will see you all then. Peace and blessings, family. See you next
Thank
week.
you.